And then the darkness, the deep darkness opened. It tore like a portal opening or something like that. And this waterfall of light that was 100,000 times bigger than me just was pouring light, white light, and also all of the colors of all of the stars I had seen that night. So it was also two things at once. It was this oneness of pure light and all these tiny, tiny fragments of all these different kinds of electromagnetic energy, radio frequencies, infrared and ultraviolet, and all the visible spectrum, and more.
My guest today is Peter Panagore. He is an acclaimed author and spiritual counselor known worldwide for his best selling book, Heaven is Beautiful: How Dying Taught Me That Death is Just the Beginning. With two near death experiences, Peter's life underwent profound transformations. After graduating with a bachelor's in English from the University of Massachusetts in 1982, following his first near death experience, he redirected his career path from architecture to studying the classics of Western mysticism at Yale University's Divinity School, earning his Master of Divinity. Reverend Peter served liberal congregational churches and their communities for over 2 decades, while privately pursuing his mystical studies and practices. During his 15-year tenure as a television writer and on-air talent for his morning inspirational spot, he reached 30 million views annually on two NBC-TV News Stations across Maine and New Hampshire. His best-selling first book, 2 Minutes for God, Quick Fixes for the Spirit, is a selection from his 1700 scripts. He has practiced centering prayer and Kriya Yoga for 40 years. He hosts Not Church, Mysticism, No Doctrine, No Dogma, No Bravo Sierra on his YouTube channel, offers spiritual transformation integration counseling, and teaches Kriya through Zoom, and lives in coastal Maine, USA. Peter, thank you so much for joining us today. It means a lot to me to have you on my podcast.
Thank you for having me, Tia, and thank you for telling me your story before we began.
Yes, you're welcome. And you've had some profound experiences in your life that have completely changed not only your way of thinking, but your path in life as well. Would you mind telling us a little bit about that?
Well, the first one that happened was in 1980. I was an undergraduate exchange student from University of Massachusetts to Montana State University. And I was out west because I didn't want to be home anymore and I wanted adventure, but I was running away from my family that had a wound, and that wound was painful. So when spring break came around, I didn't want to go back home again. I wanted to go on an adventure. I'd been in the National Ski Patrol since I was in high school. I was a Boy Scout until I was 18, 2 years longer than most. I joined the Explorers so I could go backpacking and camping in the winter, summer, spring, and fall. I hiked in the White Mountains in New Hampshire and the Greens in Vermont, and spent my August and September of the previous year hiking all sorts of mountain ranges in Montana and Wyoming. That springtime, I didn't want to go home. So I was looking for adventure, and I went to the outdoor club where I found a man who was planning a trip to British Columbia and Alberta in Canada in the Rocky Mountains in March to go backcountry snow caving and ice climbing. And that was right up my alley. I had just finished my first class on telemark skiing and backcountry and cross country skiing at the university, and I was a skier anyway. I've been skiing my whole life, so I thought, how can you combine these two things? And we checked out our mutual compatibility and what skills we brought to the game, and we decided to go. The equipping for the snow caving adventure was pretty easy. That was a great adventure. Wow, that's all I can say about it. Wow, so much wilderness, so much edge, so much beauty. But the ice climbing, I had never ice climbed. I had rock climbed. I'd been spent a lot of time in the high mountains, but I decided that I would try my hand at ice. But I couldn't come up with all the equipment that I needed. I came up short one axe, and so I substituted a hammer for it, which was usable but not smart. Tim had just finished his certification for ice climbing as a lead climber, so I felt safe in his hands, and I talked him into it. And so we climbed with me short of equipment because we both really wanted to do this. And that choice of mine slowed us down by half of the other teams that were climbing that day ahead of us. So by the time we reached the top of the climb, the sun was setting, the temperature dropped 30 degrees, and we were in mortal danger. Hypothermia started immediately with violent shivers and continued through the night, worsened through the night. We talked about staying where we were. We were 500, 600 feet up. No one was going to come and rescue us. And because of the hypothermia, I knew, first aid wilderness guy, that we were going to die. And that was what was going to happen. We could snuggle up against the mountain together to conserve our heat, but we were both already in the initial throes of hypothermia. And so there was no heat to conserve. So we decided that the only way we could live was to fight our way down the mountain. I could tell you the whole story. It's high adventure, confusion, chance taking, courage, fear, animalistic willpower, frozen hands and feet and frostbite and advancing hypothermia, and all sorts of troubles all along the way, including never being in a safe position and always being clumsy enough as cold stole our coordination to fall. So we fought our way across the mountain, and by the time we reached the last rappel, it was sometime way after midnight, early morning, I don't really know. But we were clipped into the mountain. We were on safety harnesses that were attached to the mountain for rappelling. First time all night, we'd been not in danger of falling. Tim was to my left and I was to his right, and I had the rope. And I should describe the scene a little bit here. These mountains are 10 to 14,000 feet tall. We're only 500 feet up, but the majesty of them is overpowering. And this is deep, deep, deep wilderness, 10 feet of snow on the ground, the Saskatchewan River bubbling on the other side of the Icefields Parkway, a million is more stars in the sky than are behind you on your screen, times 10. So many stars that it was illuminated, we could see. But the hypothermia all night long got worse and worse and worse. And my frostbite, I still have all my digits, but I was blistered up and my feet had gone from feeling like I was standing in a bed of red coals to no feeling at all. So now we're 100, 150 feet up. My eyeballs are freezing. It's difficult to talk. My brain is freezing. My whole body is freezing. And the rope got stuck. I took the rope, I tied one end to my harness, I took the other end, and I tossed it out around this corner. There was this crag up above that we had just descended down off the ice on the rock. And I pulled the rope, and as soon as I pulled the rope, it jammed somewhere far up above. And I pulled it again, and it jammed harder. And then it was immovable. And now we had half a rope. We were alone in the wilderness, and we couldn't go down because this was a sheer face, and we couldn't go up because it was a sheer face, and we had no rope, no safety. And all night long we've been fighting. I'd been containing my fear because panic kills you in the wilderness, and I was driving myself forward. I had this I touched into this animal space where deep inside my brain, my survival instinct, one might call it, took over, but it ran me. It wasn't something outside of me. It was deeper than me, and it was in control of me. But when the rope got stuck and I couldn't get it free, well, I gave up. And this peace settled over me. There was nothing I could do about it. I accepted what was going on. My hyperthermia continued. I unzipped my coat because I felt like my chest got hot, which was crazy. And I knew better intellectually because ski patrol, but I didn't care. I'd lost my reason. And as this peace settled into me, I started thinking about my family and the situation back home I had run away from. And my sister had run away, but vanished from our lives, this open, gaping wound that never healed. And there I was going to die, and my parents were going to lose their second kid. And they had opposed my trip. I mean, they really wanted me to come back. But when I'd gone back in December, it was not good. All I wanted to do was stay away. And I have a loving family, don't get me wrong. They're good people. It's just that the pain was and the anger was just too much for me. So they told me, don't go on this trip, come home. We want you home. I'm like, I'm not going home. And now, as I stood there, I was going to die and nothing I could do about it. So I began to fall asleep, which was like a curtain dropping on my brain, bump, out cold, smack my shoulder head on the rock as I collapsed, stand back up again, pull on the rope. Did that 3 times. I don't know, didn't count. And then I stood up this last time and I had this big dark circle around my vision, like a tunnel. And this tunnel just began to collapse very rapidly. And I looked around and I could see, I could see what I wasn't seeing. I could see that there should be mountain there, but all I see is black. And it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And as it was getting smaller and smaller, I thought, I must be falling asleep. And then it went to black. And when it went to black, I didn't fall asleep. I awoke, but I was no longer in my body. My body seemed to be behind me, not far behind me, but I was sort of in front of it, but I couldn't see it. It was more of a sense. And if I had a front in front of me, the mountain was gone and there was this sudden, huge universe-size expanse of darkness. And I was confused. I didn't understand what was going on. And as I'm in this confused state, I wasn't scared. I was like, what's this? How come I don't have any pain anymore? Where'd the mountain go? What's going on here? And as I'm looking into this darkness, a little tiny star appeared way in the outer edge. And way in the outer edge, it immediately began to rush toward me from there and filled my vision as it came to me and communicated to me telepathically without language or concept, just data, just information. You're coming with me. And I thought, I'm not going anywhere. I don't know what's going on. I'm staying right here. And so I tried with my will to stay where I was. It took me like a scoop, just scooped me right up. And I'm not in this shade anymore. I'm made of light, no molecules, but I'm still sort of human shaped. And I'm inside of this orb, this angelic, intelligent, super intelligent, like showing me its intelligence far outstripping all of humanity. If you took all the human brains and experience and the smartest of all the people in all the history of all the world, it's not even close. And it was showing me that, but it was also feeding me with compassion and comfort. And I was inside of this entity, which was gigantic, but it was super positioned. It was a reduction of this other being that I could hear it communicating with, but it wasn't like, hey you, oh hey you. It was one being, and this one being was somehow reduced to a size to carry me. And I was inside of it without any agency. I couldn't move. Not that I wanted to, I didn't need to, but I couldn't. My body is made of metaphorically light, and I am superpositioned. I am both inside of this entity, rushing back up the direction we had come, and I'm outside in this vast darkness like a singular eyeball. I feel like an eyeball, and I can see myself in the angel rushing forward back to where it came from. Rushing backward, I should say. But when I looked from inside this being, I couldn't see the eye out there. It was only darkness. But as I looked, I was still seeing me. I had 2 points of view simultaneously that didn't make mental sense, but made I totally understood what was going on. Oh, it's the eye. I'm seeing through the eye of God seeing me, but I'm seeing me through the eye of God. So I was both things. And then we reached the edge of this darkness, and this darkness expanded, or I popped out of it, or the angelic being unfolded. I haven't figured that part of my NDE out. It's still kind of dark to me what happened in this 1 second moment. But I popped out, and now my light being self isn't in the shape of a human anymore. I am ginormous. I am a massive ball, an orb of consciousness, and my thinking and my seeing and my feeling and my self-understanding, they're all one thing. They're not, I don't know how to explain this, but I am a singular entity. All of myself is one thing. And I can see in every direction at once. I am content with myself. I recognize myself as always having been this, never really having been the human. That was just a temporary thing. This is my true self. This is me. And I'm in this expansive darkness, and I can see in every direction at once, like 10,000 eyes. But way far in the far furthest distance of this illuminated darkness, lots of paradoxes here, this illuminated darkness was a deep darkness, a greater darkness that I couldn't see into. And it was universes away from me. I could see all that way clearly. There was nothing where I was. I was no thing, not energy, not molecules, not quanta. I am no thing in nothingness. But I have consciousness, and this belly that I'm inside of is consciousness also. And I sense this in this illumination that is this darkness. It's both at once, but way far in this distant distance is this deep darkness of infinity that I can't see into. And I am alone in this vast expanse. There's nothing but me. And I was content. I was knowing myself as I always had been, healed and whole. And then the darkness, the deep darkness opened. It tore like a portal opening or something like that. And this waterfall of light that was 100,000 times bigger than me just was pouring light, white light, and also all of the colors of all of the stars I had seen that night. So it was also two things at once. It was this oneness of pure light and all these tiny, tiny fragments of all these different kinds of electromagnetic energy, radio frequencies, infrared and ultraviolet, and all the visible spectrum, and more, not just that. And it wasn't going from A to B to A to B like this. It was A and B at the same time. It was one light and many lights at the same time. And I could see both at the same time. They both were visible to me, and both were true. And it was the most seductively luscious, desirous beauty I had ever encountered, and I wanted it. So in my thought of wanting, I was moving. The thought of wanting, this thought of desire was movement toward it. And as I moved toward it, it came toward me. So suddenly right there in front of me, gigantic. And it had this iridescent flow to it. So it was this movement. And I was right up next to it. And I touched it with my being. And as I touched it with my being, it opened me. It tore me open and filled inside of me. And I was absorbed into it. And it expanded and expanded and expanded me. And all these things happened at the same time. This timelessness it wasn't a sequence, but I talk about it that way because I don't know how else to do that. But as it expanded inside of me, it showed me myself. It showed me not just my human self, but it showed me primarily my true selves. It showed me my higher self. And as it filled me and expanded me, I could hear it calling me into my original being. A word, a name, a breath, nothing I can say, no tongue involved, but I am, or a score of music, or a painting of art being brought into being. And it was eons and eons and eons ago, eons, and also in the now. So there's this two thing happening that I was created so long ago, eons, but I was also created now. And they weren't different. They were the same. And I knew that was myself. And the voice said to me, no language, showed me its creatorness, showed me my own creation. I watched myself being created. And I felt myself being created. And I was this long tail of a soul. And as I heard myself being brought into being, this divine fiery eye looked at me, and I had some level of my humanity back. And as it looked at me, it illuminated all of me, all of my lifetime of experiences in every single micro moment, every single microsecond. Nothing that I had ever done or was or thought was excluded, and it was loved as I was. I was beloved, but as I was seen, so I became scared. I saw these parts of darkness that I had hidden inside myself, either from myself or from others, and I tried to hide them. I felt this shame, but the shame wasn't because I was being judged. The shame was because I was so small in comparison to this infinite purity. The comparison of my own fragility was shattering to me. But as I tried to hide it, they became illuminated. And I was transported into a hell of my own making, where I experienced all of the pain that I had given away to every single individual in a sequence from inside them, feeling their emotions, their envy and their anger, their jealousy, their psychology and their physiology as the chemicals rushed into them from what I was doing to them. I was in them. I was them. I understood that the divine is everyone. That no one, it's not that we're not just separate. It's this unlimited being experiencing limitation in us. And so every aspect of the injured was fully known to the divine and shown to me in experience as simultaneously I'm going through the same sequence as my younger self, chronologically, experiencing all of my jealousies and angers and meanness, why I was trying to hurt this person at this time. So I had these 2 points of view. And I understood that the divine was equally me and all these other people. And that's why how I was known. And in this comparison, I saw that all the pain I gave away was actually mine. And it was 10,000 times greater than what I had intended as a kid. And that became my cage. And that meanwhile, the voice is still speaking love to me. It's showing me this, but it's also speaking love and welcome to me. And it showed me all of humanity. And I saw this radical equality of all of humanity's brokenness. And it wasn't just us, it was the whole universe. Everything has this limitation to it. And this limitation gives it existence. No limitation, no universe. Perfection, only infinite being. And so everything was created. I understood the creation of all of it and this equality of our smallness, our equal smallness compared to this infinite purity. And as I saw this, I understood that because the structure is thus not my fault, not anybody's fault for being a human being, and all are fully known. And as I saw this, I felt all of the love that had been given to me in my life and all the love I had given away, which was also mine. And as I became aware of that treasure, my attention shifted from the smallness of myself to the largeness of the divine love. And as that happened, all of that other stuff went away as if it had never existed. All of my suffering was gone. All of the karma or the sins, or whatever you want to call it, all of this pain that I had given away, it dematerialized. And then I expanded and expanded and expanded. And all of these fragments of beauty and truth, knowledge, understanding, bliss, joy, paradise, truth, light, love, all of them that we have as pieces here are unified as one, so that charity is love and truth is knowledge and knowledge is joy, and that there's no separation between this one thing. And I expanded and expanded and expanded, and I could see the infinite darkness and this light from the darkness pouring into me, expanding me to a point at which I felt like any more and my separation would have ceased, and I would have folded back into the infinity and been no more separate. And as I'm in this state, I see these other layers of myself. I experienced them. And the closest layer, I was a single photon. This is all metaphor. I was a single photon, and in front of me was a field of a bazillion, gazillion googolplex photons extending into infinity, up and down and right and left. And they were all superpositioned with each other. They're all these individual portions, but they're also simultaneously all one light, individual tiny little lights and all one light. And it is this intelligence and power and majesty and glory. And pick any metaphor you want to, or adjective about the grandeur, wonder of it. And it was all contained inside this living entity of intellect, of love. And it showed me my limitation and my equality with it. I was also a photon outside, superpositioned, but not in the field. I was I was outside of its fullness, but I was connected to its fullness. And so I had these two experiences of being radically connected to all of humanity and the molecular structure of the universe, and also this experience of being at one with the thing itself, almost simultaneously. And so I'm this photon, and I'm in this dark field, and all these other photons are in front of me, being the being. And then my attention is drawn back to my soul self, this elongated soul self, everlasting soul self that came out of the darkness through the light and had existence before time began, outside of time. I don't know how to describe. Before, outside of, suddenly there is, it connects, I connect with time. And I have like 1,000 lives. And there's all these lives, and none of them are me. I am this photonic self. I'm still even above the soul self. I am still this image of the divine. And as my attention is brought down to the soul self, I understand that I am it also. I am this oversoul. And this oversoul, I live all these lives simultaneously. It's like I kind of pierce down into these worlds, but the mass of my being, my oversoul, far exceeds all of the worlds and lives that I had lived. I was sort of like putting my finger in a pie, and I get a little on my finger, but it's still not my finger. And then I wanted to see inside. And so I asked, can I see inside? Zoom. I get zoomed down into this oversoul self that then I am in suddenly one of my lives. And in this life, I'm a guy, and I'm sandal footed on a dirt road, dirty toenails, dusty feet, walking with a bunch of other guys, talking spirituality, and on like an avenue, but it's a dirt road, and it's all and there are people walking, pulling carts, and bending over and fixing this, and there's a house on the left and palm trees, and I don't know where I am or who I am, but I understand the language. I hear what's being said, and whatever that language is, I can speak it, and I understand it. And someone asks me a question, and as they ask, I'm about to answer, and I'm pulled out. And then I'm stuffed inside this way previous earlier life where I was some kind of, I say a lizard, but I don't really know. What I could see was there was different light. My eyes could perceive different light than my human eyes can see, and it changed the shape of everything. I had this strong sense that I was kind of tucked inside somewhere, looking through this small space, seeing all these things out beyond me, but I was safe, but I don't know what I was. And then I got pulled out of that, and then I I was sort of shrunk back down again. And I had this relationship with my just previously ended life. And I could see my parents with my heart. And I said, am I dead? And the voice said, yeah, you're dead. No sound. From inside of me and all around me says, it's this one thing. And I'm like, but what about my folks? And as I had this, meaning, they're gonna suffer. Show me what can happen, I guess, is what I was thinking. But what about my folks? And it swept me across the the belly of space, the womb of space, and brought me to this edge where there was this permeability, where the energy of heaven became the matter of the universe. And this little tiny part of me was stuck outside of this energy field, and the mass of me was still, I felt like I was as big as the space I was in. I don't know how to describe that, but this part of me that could see the universe, I had some kind of eyes, and the my attention was swept back to the beginning of time. And when I'm saying I'm in the universe, I just saw this picture from a series of pictures from the James Webb Telescope. I don't know if you've been seeing the starscapes and the galaxy scapes that they've been producing, but I was like in this dark space, and there were strands and strands and strands of galaxies, billions of them, but the space was vast, and my vision was brought all the way through them back to this where the greater darkness, out of which was pouring this light, just massive amounts of light that was then being woven into our universe in the beginning of time and in now. Same, it's always now. And it's weaving itself, it wove itself into all of the dark matter and the dark energy and the stars and the galaxies and the planets, and it was woven inside of everything, and everything was made of love and light. And meanwhile, as I'm watching this, I can see all these universes popping out of this darkness, universe after universe after universe, thousands, like, and they're all just like scattering off, and all are made of the same light. And I have this strong sense that all of the love and the entirety of all of these universes and the universe I'm in and the infinite darkness, it speaks to me and says, in the way that I love you now, with this, all of this love, the size of our universe and other universes and the heaven I'm inside of and the divine infinite that I can't see into, the unconditional infinite love it's indescribable, but it has defined my life from the day I came back. This one thing, and it filled me so, and helped me understand that I was the most unique. I was the unique, particular beloved. And as this is reverberating through me, saying, because I love you now as I have always loved you, all is well, all has been well, all will be well, because of my immense love, everything there is made of me. And it brought my understanding, my vision back to Earth. And I could see Earth like a hologram, but day and night, live time, all the people in it. And that same love that was inside of me was a visible speck of golden light inside of every human being, no matter who they were or what they were doing. War, terrible things, prisoners, executives, street sweepers, no difference. Everybody has this light inside them, but nobody can see it. There's this shroud over the earth that prevents them all from seeing what I know is true, that they're the same as me, that as beloved as I am, so are they, and that no one and nothing is eternally lost, because everything is made of the divine being. Nothing, it loves itself. And because we're made of it, we are beloved. And then I saw two sets of my parents, A and B, mom and dad, mom and dad. And I saw the length of their life without me and the brokenness of their suffering that it produced, massive, traumatic, dramatic, life crashing brokenness. And then I saw their lives with me and suffering, bad suffering, but not destructive, better of the two. And meanwhile, the voice is saying to me, in not only telling me that I'm beloved, but that I'm welcome. Come home to me. Gives me this choice, shows me these things, shows me the equality of their deaths. When they die, they become like I was in the instant of their death. And I understood, not only had my just ended life been the snap of my fingers in length, but that was true for every single person I could see on earth now. The time was this long from the point of view, my point of view. And so I thought to myself, I'll go back and help them, because time's nothing to me. And I said, if I go back, can I come back here? And the voice said, yeah, you come back here to this bliss and understanding. You come back to me. And I said, well, then I choose my life. And the voice said, you won't live your life. Kick me out. And as I went back, I became denser. I was in the angelic carrying device. I was in the angelic being bringing me back, being crushed in size. And I could see this beam of heavenly white light, like a big, huge laser beam, pouring out of the darkness that was behind me that I couldn't see into anymore, but I could see that it was there. And this beam of light became all of these doors, in the center of which was the intensity, the intense door. And then all of these millions of doors, like flower petal leaves sticking out from the middle, all illuminated but in decreasing factor out to the edge. And the voice of the divine, who was also superpositioned, is the angelic being, but it's also way back. And the voice still speaking to me says to me, choose light, choose a life. And so I have all these thoughts about the life I want to live. And I want the light, though. And I do. So instead of choosing just the light, which I think would have put me just in the light, I chose two. I chose light and life. And I became a mix. Not far off. My doorway was close, but not in the inner circle. And the door opened and I got flown down this tunnel. And in this tunnel, this tube, there were all these doors, and all of these doors led to all of these other tunnels. So I went through this field of probabilities, saw that I would be making choices and moving between these tunnels. And I came to the end of my tunnel, and there was a scene, and there was a body, and a body above it. The body above it was kneeling and had the body below it by collar. And I didn't know who they were or what was going on. I didn't understand the scene. I could just see it. And then this angelic being sort of made me into an ice screw and stuck me here and twisted me in. And then I'm shoved inside this thing. And I'm in an exile, instantaneously know that I've made a mistake. And I can still see out through the eye, this opening here, and I can see the angelic being, and I can see back into heaven, back where it was. And then that eye just closes. And now I'm trapped. And all of this suffering comes back as my brain comes back online. And I'm in agony where and it was doubly or triply so than it was before, because I went from having no pain to suddenly having not just the pain of my physical body, but the pain of being human, the pain of being in the world made of material substance. Then my brain came back online and my hearing came back, and Tim was yelling at me, don't die, don't die, don't die, screaming in a panic. I opened my eyes, didn't know who he was, but you were dead. I thought you were dead. You were dead. You're going to die. I'm going to die. And he didn't want to die. And he pulled me up, and the rope came free. We descended, treated for hypothermia, and I was an entirely different person, living in the same body, but not at all the same.
Wow, that is an incredible story, and the details that you remember are special because I feel like a lot of the information is kind of held back, but you were able to come back to your life with so much information that you took from the other side.
I've worked at it.
Has it
It's
taken some time for things to unfold for you?
and they continue to. And it's like suddenly a door will open and I'll see portion of it. But it came back with me lively, but I had no concepts to hang it on, no ideas or language. So I've literally spent my entire life in pursuit of the light, the oneness, and the expression of it. And I don't know if this is true for other NDEers, but my NDE keeps given to me. The more I mine it, the more it has to give. It's this abundant storehouse of gifts. And I don't go looking for the gift. I don't ask for the gift. I only want the one thing. And it produces gifts anyway. It's astounding to me that I can remember something where I didn't have a brain. How can I remember? Where's my memory lodged? And I've come to understand that my memory is lodged with most of me, which never fully incarnated anyway. And so my process has not so much been trying to understand what happened to me as it is to get out of the way and let the revelation come to me. Let it tell me, my human me, let my higher self me tell my human self me what happened to me. And I kept this a secret for 20 years while I worked on my yoga and my kriya and my centering prayer and my studies. Um, because I didn't want to be thought of crazy. I came from a smart, analytical, educated kind of environment and didn't want to risk my professional life or my relationships on being misunderstood. But I couldn't help but it leaking out all over me, all over my life, made a big, splashy mess of my life with light, um, changed all of my behaviors, redirected the course of my direction. It's continues to do that to me.
While you were, I guess, one of the photons, you felt like your karma just dissolved. There was no, uh, like, nothing to make amends for. It was just gone. So, is that something that we need not be concerned about? We don't have karma?
I don't know about anyone else but me. What I know is I carried with me all the harm that I had done in my life. And then when I released it, I entered union and that I was in my own way. And that once I stepped out of the way, once I accepted this unconditional love, I those things didn't exist anymore. But there's a corollary. There's a corollary to this, in that in my life now, I'm trying to do the most I can not to walk through that fiery sword again, to minimize that as the best I can. I know that I'll survive it. I know that beauty awaits me. I will enter into it if it's necessary, and I'll do it happily and joyfully because I know the end result. But I live my life, it doesn't give me the freedom to live a life of harm. It actually gives me the freedom and liberty to live a life of, to the best of my ability, of compassion, love, and kindness. Just the opposite. It doesn't. Someone said to me recently, "Well, if that's true, then can't we do anything we want?" I don't know about you, but I can't. I know too much about love and light to want to cause such harm in the world. And whether or not I carry what I have done, and I have not been a perfect person, nobody is. I definitely have hurt people in my life, and always, you know how it is, the ones closest to you. That's the way it works. And whatever karma I carry, I know I will be freed from it because I was promised to be back in the state of bliss. As for all the lives I lived, when I'm here, to me, this is like pre-K, pre-kindergarten. When I was dead, I knew everything I needed to know. Everything I wanted to know, I knew. In the instant of my wanting to know it, I my knowledge was almost infinite. I had almost, it's kind of like, it's better than the Neuralink. I had, it's as if I had a Neuralink connected to the AI Google of God. Anything I wanted to know, and my bandwidth was huge, was instantaneous. And while I'm here, I feel dumb and trapped. And so I found that the purpose of my life is to love as much as I can in action and bring light as much as I'm able in my intent and purpose. And I'm hoping that I can not come back. Maybe I've done my time. I don't know. I'll come back if I have to, of course. But what do I learn here that I didn't know on the other side? Not much, except for to love.
That's really powerful and very beautiful. I think love is the most common thread seen throughout near death experiences, is that the love is just so intense and it's so encompassing. It's like nothing we have here. Do you feel like Peter Panagore still exists in all eternity once this body's gone? No.
No, there was a portion of me that it was there, but it wasn't the fullness of me any more than any of the previous lives I had lived or was living were me. They were me when I'm there, but my oversoul is so much more. I and I know this is scary for people for me to talk like this because everybody wants their some part of themselves to remain. But as for me, I'm spending my life trying to detach from my egoic self. I know that this isn't real. I know that I am much more than this particular incarnation. I'm so much more than this. And that this is a limited form. That said, my dad came back to me after he died. I've been in situations where I did this funeral for this vet who had taken his own life with his pistol. Maybe 1,000 people of my town there, and his seventh grade girlfriend stood up when I asked, because now everybody knows this about me now. Um, did he come and visit anybody? And he visited her. People do get visited. People get collected at death from those by those that they love. But those are layers of us. There's so much more to us than we can see here. Those layers seem to remain for many, maybe even most. But as for me, I only want my photonic self. I only want this oneness of being. I want to enfold back into the unlimited. I don't want to remain separate. And it's been the scariest part of my life. Even though I've spent my entire life diving deeper and deeper and deeper into my interior, polishing my lens, I've also been holding something back for most of my life. I didn't want to actually, I was so angry that I didn't read the small print of the contract when I got sent back here, even though I chose it. I was so angry that I kept a portion of me separate. And it wasn't until after I died again in 2015 that was released. And when I fully surrendered, I no longer pray every day for my own death because heaven isn't out there anymore. Heaven is here with me now. I'm not missing anything. The intensity of it, probably. The quantity of it, for sure. But the quality of it, it's here now for me, only because I surrendered myself. And that is what I hope to be able to do on the other side. Continue that process.
You decided to come back, and as soon as you came back to your body, you realized that you had made a mistake. You regretted it. And you decided to come back because you didn't want your parents to suffer. Do you think that deep down inside there was another meaning for you to come back, or another reason to possibly share this experience with the world? I feel like the world is waking up, and your stories like yours are becoming more and more prevalent. So I think maybe that's part of the energy of the planet, or whatever energy, vibration, frequency we're on right now. What do you think?
I think, yeah, I know that part of my choosing the light was to be an emissary of light. And that more than anything else has dominated my life. My coming back to help my parents, the pain of my family still was there when I came back. And I'm the child who moved the furthest away. My duty to my parents has been being the best son I can be for them. I helped my dad and my mom and like good kids and do. But I know in the center of my heart that my job here is to pursue the divine with all my body, mind, and soul and my interior, and to then be a channel of it here to the best of my ability. And that was true from the very moment I came back. And that morning I came back, the next morning, we had a terrible car accident, and I had to hitchhike back to Bozeman. We had enough money for Tim to take a bus. And in the morning, I'm sticking out my sign to get back to Bozeman from, where was I? I was in Alberta. And I had this roaring sound inside of me. The voice came back with me, calling me, telling me to speak, and then giving me no words and no idea of how to do it or where to find them. And so I decided to zip my lip and not speak about it. So I kept it a secret for 20 years, but I couldn't help if it was spilling out all over me no matter what I did. It was like this, it was like I was permeable, and I'm trying to keep a thing inside, and it just was making me live an eccentric life of uh, in my ministry. I became a minister. I hid in the church for a long time because I could meditate there and do my studies. And I had this component of my job, of my sole job, was to help people who are suffering. And so that was a good position for me to be in. I never told the church, not till for 20 years. And but my choices were like, oh my God, who is this minister? He's not like any minister we've ever met in our lives. He just doesn't really care about a lot of things we should care about, like social norms, like barefoot. I preached barefoot every Sunday. I just didn't care. When I moved to this island, I had long hair and a ponytail and drove a sports car convertible, and decided that the church was wrong about only helping its own people, that I would help every single person in the community who needed it, and those sorts of things. And that it was, and much, much more. Um, not because I was intentionally rebelling, but just because I was following the light.
And you've done a fine job of shining your light and spreading the word, the good word that we're eternal beings that never die. And I think that's just the most important message in the whole world. Your story has touched so many. And I just want to thank you for putting it out there. You've really helped a lot of people heal, and not just people who've had near death experiences. I think a lot of people have had them and they don't know what happened, and they
Yeah.
need to hear someone's story, and then it starts to come to them. Oh, maybe that's what happened to me. I've heard a lot of people say that. And you also help people who are facing death, and maybe they're on hospice care or they've been diagnosed with a terminal illness and they know it's going to be their time soon. And you can live your life a certain way. When it comes down right down to it, sometimes fear arises, and it helps to hear stories like yours and people like me who are deep in grief, wondering if our loved ones are still around, if they still exist. So, just so many thanks to you for sharing your story and for coming on here today. And I want to also point out, if my viewers, you have some incredible books and some other gifts that you share with the world. How can my viewers find you?
peterpanagore.love links to all my social media and all the work that I do. I do help people as often as I can, counseling sessions for mystics and spiritually transformed people who are trying to figure out what happened to them, and people who are grieving. I can say that love never dies. And so love has substance on the other side. And the love that you have here for any individual still has substance over there. It doesn't dissolve. It only becomes more of itself. You have an Audible international bestseller. It was pretty scary to write. partly to tell my story publicly, but partly because of I love literature and writing, and I wanted to do a good job, and I didn't want to. It was an English major, so it's like it was. Oh my gosh, what if I screw this thing up? Um, but it's all going pretty well.
As it should, because your story is incredible and you have a lot to share with the world. And I think the universe gives us boosts when it's something that we give in service of others.
I'm into that.
Well, thank you so much, Peter, for being a guest on my podcast. Um, I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Tia.